want you to, everybody to cross your arms, cross them like this, and look down. You're not hugging yourself, you're crossing your arms. Now how do you feel? Look up again. Right. Who said warm and cosy? Out. Okay, now I want you to go like this. Don't hit the person next to you. And how do you feel? Right, now you're open. You're ready to receive the word. So I'm out of here now. Okay, Ben Ryan's my name. I've been on this journey for a fair while, and I've got a lot of learning experiences. So it's up to you to get the most out of me. I'm hoping that in the next 10 or 15 minutes I will stimulate some thinking, and then you can hammer me in the question and answer time. If there are no questions for me in the question and answer time, and I've done an ordinary job, and you haven't got your money's worth. But you didn't pay anything anyway. So this is where I live, down here on the end of the Clare Peninsula. And this is what our farm looks like. So we're in about a 750 mil rainfall. We've got about 240 paddocks, and they average about 5 hectares. Now we all have a journey, and that journey sets our perspective on everything that we do. For me, I grew up with very severe depression, and at least 3 times in my life it was paralysing. But during that time, I was introduced to a number of therapists and counsellors and people with alternative ideas, and that helped to set my perspective now. So I had hundreds of hours with some of these people, but I'm living proof that you can get through it. But it was during that time when my physical health was also incredibly poor due to my mental health that I was introduced to the power of what we do to ourselves, both in the way of nutrition and the way we think and a whole lot of other things. So I then became a food producer rather than a farmer. And if you think about that, there's so much that we do in agriculture that's about killing stuff. And when you're killing the food that we're supposed to be eating, if we actually talk about what we produce as food, it's a pretty stupid thing we do. And the other thing that's really important is, and it was actually difficult when I was thinking about what I'd say today, because every day, every week, every year, my perspective changes. What I understand changes. The story that I believe changes. And so a couple of weeks ago when I was thinking about this, I was going to talk about different things than a couple of days ago when I set my last, or I had to have the presentation in. So don't ever get bogged down on what you are now. Hopefully you'll all leave here with a little bit of a broader way of thinking, and that opens up to opportunities. If you do this. So in 87, after I left uni, I went to Roseworthy Ag College. We were going really hard at this high input agriculture, best practice stuff, lots of fertiliser. We are permanent pasture sheep and cattle producers. So we're not into cropping, but we were bringing plenty of feed in, feeding lots, very high stocking rates, pushing the system to the limit. It was described as a V8 chainsaw, very dangerous. So if anything happened to me, if I had a sick day, the system fell apart. Like it was seriously best practice. But after only about 4 years of that, I was getting really nervous about what that meant. So that got me thinking about organic agriculture. Had absolutely no idea what it meant or how to do it, but it was the beginning of the thinking. We still pushed really hard at high input stuff. We were running impressively high stocking rates. Production systems were good, but our system was crashing in real terms. But in conventional agriculture terms, they weren't, because we just put more on. You put more fertiliser on, you brought more feed in, you just did more. it wasn't until 2002, when I was still looking for an alternative, that I did the RCS Grazing for Profit School, that actually opened my mind to what else could be. And yeah, just remember that this best practice stuff is often damaging ourselves and our landscape and the people that we're feeding. So I was very fortunate that through my depression, Julianne, who I met at that time, she didn't realise how screwed up I was. I was a bit like a closet alcoholic as far as depression went. But anyway, she put up with me through lots of therapy, and yeah, we're still together today after about 150 years of marriage. So a light bulb, it only seems like that, doesn't it, Julianne? So a light bulb moment for me was, I had a fertiliser rep come into the house, you know, as they do, they come to the kitchen table, and he's sitting across from me and he says, now you do know that for every kilo of phosphorus you put on, 80% of that's going to be tied up in your ironstone soils. You know, if he's selling me the stuff and he's saying 80%, it's probably more than that. But you know the story, just buy more, you'll be right. This is just a few pretty pictures. So one of the things we do when we're, the stuff on the outside here is Tagasasti. So we plant native, planting windbreaks, we'll plant some native trees and shrubs in the middle, and then we plant Tagasasti on the outside, and we harvest that to feed the animals during the summertime, or they reach over and harvest it. So, in 2003, I was severely depressed, but I'd started to make some decisions that have got us to where we are now. I decided that I didn't want to kill things. I didn't want to have to treat for disease and parasites. I didn't want to drench sheep. I didn't want to kill weeds. I didn't want to have weeds. But I wanted to start living a life. Well, I did have a midlife crisis at one stage. Some people get sports cars or new wives, so I got free-range pigs. Everything we did from that time on was about achieving those goals. So I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I just knew what I didn't want to do. We got rid of the chemical fertilisers. We got rid of the insecticides, pesticides. I started to understand that we needed animals to work with our system. We were prepared to compromise at times our animal performance to have a system that worked more holistically. And we had some fantastic learning experiences. Other people call them mistakes. At home it was a learning experience. So our grazing management. At all times we're trying to optimise the grazing pressure. So on 5 hectare paddocks we might have 2,000 sheep. Sometimes they'll be there for, depending on the time of the year, they'll be there for a few hours, and sometimes it might be 3 days, just depending on what we might like to achieve. But rest is the critical thing, and rest, there really is no such thing as overgrazing, there's under-resting. And to start to understand how that works took me some time. And most of what we're talking about here is not the physical stuff that's changing, it's the change that comes up here. It's your changing in your ability to think and allow other ideas to come in. We all better keep moving here. So we're trying to understand the language of the plants and the insects. What are they trying to tell us? What are we doing with our system that is meaning that they're there? And if we don't change anything about that, they will still be back again next year. So if you can kill them now as all you like, but if you change nothing else, they'll be back. We celebrate diversity. In our modern agricultural system, we celebrate non-diversity. We love neat and tidy. You know, that wheat crop's got to be schmicko. We don't want any weeds anywhere. Well, we don't have weeds anymore. And actually, we don't have weeds anymore. When we first started this, my father said, how are you going to control the thistles? How are you going to control the insects? How are you going to control the grubs? I don't know. But we don't have them. They're just not issues, things we just don't think about anymore. So we do feed some free choice minerals to the animals, and the last slide you saw that a bit, but this is how we do it. We do everything on a two-wheel motorbike. So one of the other thutes that really annoys me about regenerative agriculture and people who talk about it is all the bloody money and energy they spend on infrastructure, new utes, new tractors, whatever it happens to be. Now that's all energy that we're bringing into the system somewhere. It all comes from somewhere. And if we think we're sustainable, why do we keep needing more stuff to do it? So we try and keep things as simple as possible. This is the one that my kids give me the hardest time about. I had a flat tyre and I couldn't fix it that day, so I made a wooden wheel. So we like to see this. Now it doesn't always happen. There'll be times of the year where we have no dung beetles at all, but the manure disappears. So who cares who did it? It's just gone. We like diversity. So there are some wild deer. Jenny came to our place a few years ago, and I took her out into the paddock with a group from KI, and I got really excited because I could see a lucerne plant over there and one over here. She's thinking, you wacko. But the point I was trying to make is there are things there that you can want and you can celebrate, or you can go out in the paddock and say, well, this was a bloody failure. There's only a lucerne plant over there, and there's one over there, and that didn't bloody work. Or you can get really excited about what there is. And I was really excited about that lucerne plant. And the red-legged earth mite, and the worm. Modern agriculture destroys the link between nature and humans. We do love that neat and tidy stuff. And modern lifestyles destroy the link between us and nature. We are obsessed with clean. Take notice of what nature is telling us. Learn the language. How will our decisions be seen by our children, great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren? Use that as a filter when you make your decisions. Dr. Zach Bush, and I hope most of you know about Dr. Zach Bush, he said if nature wanted to destroy humans, she would have done that long ago. She has the power, but she also has this incredible desire to keep us going, which is bizarre. And nature wants us to survive, so stop fighting her. So this is the soil that we work with. So that's about a 3 metre pit, and there's not much on top of the clay. No, it's just my boys decided they wanted to see how far the excavator could dig. It's about 3 metres. So it's a very washed out clay, highly acidic, a lot of aluminium. But this is what we can do. So that's down to there is about 30 centimetres. Now when I left school in the 80s, we were told that the plants will only grow, what they're talking, 3 inches at the time. That was it. And you would see perennial plants get pulled out of the ground. The cattle at times of the year would just pull the perennial plants straight out of the ground. And all the gurus told you, you will never get roots to grow down into this acidic aluminium clay. It's bizarre, isn't it? Now, the weather has always changed. Now, you can call it climate change now, or you can call it cycles or whatever. Farmers will always whinge about the weather. So instead of whinging about it, just learn to accept the fact that it's going to change and work with it. Understand it. We spend an enormous amount of time fighting nature and try to achieve the same thing year after year. So you think about those weeds that keep coming back and how many times you try to attack them and how resilient they are. Our environment keeps repeating to fix itself. So when you've got a couple of thousand sheep coming into, and that was only about a 3.5 hectare paddock, that's sort of what it looks like as they come in. And then there's really just standing room only in some of the paddocks. So we try to work with nature, not against it. I work for my animals, not them for me. That's a hard concept to get your head around. But I do try and enjoy the experience. And I think we lose that a bit in our modern way of thinking. It's become so clinical that we forget that we're supposed to be enjoying our lives a bit as well. And that's part of enjoying life, is having family connections. So it is fairly hard to describe what I do on our farm. And I've got nothing to sell you, like Colin. You know, there is nothing. A little bit of experience. I'm not sure that it's intelligence, but it's experience. So we look for solutions within ourselves and our land. So instead of looking outside of us and our system, we're trying to find the solutions within ourselves. We don't look for fertilisers. I don't look for soil amendments, it was called earlier in the day. I don't know what you are, but anything that... We went through the stage of putting compost teas and all sorts of crap on, but really we were just burning $100 notes, I reckon. We focus on the purpose of ruminants. Ruminants are our greatest tool. They convert something that we cannot eat into something that we can. They convert something that is growing green into a fertiliser for the soil, the plants, the cycle. As I said earlier, we try to optimise our grazing density. Now, at times of the year that will change. There is no recipe. And we try to have the correct animals for the environment. There's too often I think in agriculture, we do what we want to do rather than what the environment's suited to. We try to manage for diversity. Multi-species cropping or multi-species pastures have become really trendy things, and if you're a really good regen farmer, you're into this. But in my opinion and my experience, they are just a tool to get you from one place to another. They are not the panacea. The other thing about this type of agriculture is you need to plan. If things go pear-shaped, I can't go to town. Well, I can. I choose not to go to town to buy a drum of solution. My solutions have to be planned in advance. That is one of our multi-species pastures, but we plant the multi-species instead of using fertiliser to get a perennial pasture established. In not very many years, that turns into perennial ryegrass or phalaris and some clovers. The other things disappear. But it doesn't matter. If that's what the system wants to grow, that's what the system wants to grow. So I started with a dream. I didn't want to drench sheep and spray weeds. I didn't know how to achieve this. I couldn't even imagine a way of doing it. So when you set your goals, don't limit yourself to what you know, or even can vaguely visualise. Because if you do that, you will limit where you will get. First thing we did was stop using superphosphate or any synthetic fertilisers or chemicals. We started selecting for sheep with worm resistance. We didn't understand it at the time, but we started making the animals suit the system rather than the system to suit the animals. And we used mechanical weed control at that time because we didn't know how our management would affect the plants. Now we don't really need to do that because we understand how the animals can have an impact on the system. So this was some of our mechanical weed control. These thistles, they don't look like it there, but they were so thick that you couldn't ride a motorbike through them. You just get cut to pieces. But we turned that into that, and that's no chemicals, not resowing, just a bit of management. So when you leave here, there are some things you can do, because it's very easy to leave these things and say, well, that was interesting, but I don't know what to do. I think these are some fairly easy things to do. You can try an RCS course, do a low-stress stock handling school, just start to learn about your animals. Do a KLR marketing school, join the Dick Richardson journey, do anything that stretches your comfort zone. And don't do anything if you don't have an open mind, because it will fail. You will get what you are wanting. Don't limit your goals to what you know. And remember, workshop paralysis is real. Very easy to go away and think, well, there's so much stuff, I don't know where to start. Don't be overwhelmed. Small steps are fine. And once you get hooked, enjoy the excitement. But the middle picture shows you how we were dealing with some thistles in the beginning. So that's just a very simple crimp roller we made out of an old flat roller we had. We welded some star droppers onto it. And that was our thistle control. And all we wanted to do was suppress them. We didn't want to kill them because they were doing a fantastic job at building the life in our soil.